come to this quaint town called Lichfield. Samuel Johnson was born in Lichfield in the 17th century. What a balmy weather!
I would love to say that I had a Samuel Johnson dictionary as my best friend as a child, but I cannot. The truth is, I received my first Samuel Johnson dictionary weeks after we came back home from this trip as a birthday present. Reading various sentences which he picked up from medieval plays or fascinating proses, I often ask myself whether he would be impressed by any modern internet search engine.
And this wonderfully constructed Georgian dwelling was the birthplace of the iconic English literature superstar Samuel Johnson. In this nice home, he grew one of his most prominent interests in life, that is, the literature which were written in English.
As an infant, Samuel Johnson suffered horribly from many different difficult afflictions. He had tics. Once he was almost blind in his left eye. At the end of the 18th century, the medical doctors did not have any mature idea regarding the cause of the diseases, let alone any adequate treatments. His parents turned their hope to a certain folk belief which predicts that the touch of a sovereign would heal any patient from the most difficult diseases.
What do I have here? A dictionary of the English language. This is the copy of Samuel Johnson's edition of dictionary. I find one word is particularly interesting. To flirt. In his time, to flirt is a verb which means to throw anything with a quick, athletic motion or to move with a quickness. To flirt with the love interest is just not invented by the romantics yet, and to flirt is basically to do something really quick.
This explanation is by all means interesting, I think. To fall in love was not yet an advisable reason to start a relationship. Instead, they relied on reason and logical scrutinies when choosing with whom one should spend a life together. At the age of 26, he married Elizabeth Porter, a widow who was 20 years his senior. For him, she was an intelligent woman. Together, they opened a private school in Ideal. For many admirers of the divine medieval architecture, the Gothic Cathedral, with the 3 beautifully constructed high spires, is the most important tourist attraction when visiting Lichfield. This grand cathedral is dedicated to Virgin Mary and Saint Chad of Mercia, a very prominent 7th century Anglo-Saxon churchman who was also the Bishop of Lichfield. At the end of his life, he was canonized as a saint who enjoyed massive veneration in this region. Lichfield was indeed a holy site. When Saint Chad passed away, pilgrims from all walks of life continued to come to his former congregation. To commemorate his teachings, also his idiosyncratic religion philosophies. The original Christian chapel was constructed in the beginning of the 8th century to house the bones of Saint Chad, who was later considered as a saint in the Roman Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, and also the Celtic Orthodox congregation. He was also considered as a saint in the newest edition of the Syrian Eastern Orthodox congregations.
What a grand cathedral, which was erected in the early medieval time. All the stained glass along this long nave, also on the transepts, are actually stained glasses which were constructed during the early 13th century.
The central spire is around 77 meters high, and the breadth of the nave is around 21 meters. The internal length is actually 113 meters, which allows a huge crowd to participate in one of the formal lectures in the most important holidays. Although Lichfield is a fairly secularized town today, this monumental iconic architecture still is an important symbol, the power of architecture. When admiring each and every intricate detail, I cannot stop asking myself if I also am an Egyptologist who allows the appearance to guide me as I continue to investigate my truth self-reliantly.
Now we're going to visit one of the superstars of Lichfield from the Age of Reason.
The unquestioned Christian doctrine began to crumble subtly as more and more scholars began to embrace the ancient ideas of critical scrutiny upon a philosophical level. Prior to the beginning of the monumental Industrial Revolution, the most important incentive of developing the scope of the basic ideas of natural philosophy was no longer an attempt to find out how the divinities created the world, in which every biological being employed their short life.
They are the boys who really reinvented the European way of thinking through skepticism, science, and a sense of intellectual exchanges. And many of them are today's superstars. You have James Watt, you have Josiah Wedgwood, and of course Darwin's dear friend Joseph Wright.
As an anti-Christian, Erasmus Darwin often displayed a skeptical attitude towards the biblical doctrine, despite he lived next door to the grand Lichfield Cathedral. In one of his most influential scientific discourses, he claimed that all vegetables and animals now existing were originally derived from the smallest microscopic ones, formed by spontaneous vitality in the oceans. Lichfield is an easy trip from Birmingham by taking the intercity buses or regional trains. Like most old towns in Midland, most of their star attractions are located in the very vicinity of the city centre. Besides the interesting historical sites and trendy cafes and parks, our favorite is definitely the antique shops, which located along the winding old streets.